What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 168. Back to recap the round one of the college football playoff. We're going to recap all four games, give our thoughts and look ahead to the quarterfinal matchups, which we talked about last week. Looks like we're going to have some great ones. That's exactly what we're going to end up getting. So, yeah, we're going to jump right into these round one previews. And obviously, really kind of the big storyline, I think, was from the Friday night game, Alabama and Oklahoma in Norman, the rematch from the game in the regular season in Tuscaloosa. And it really felt like a continuation of that first game in Tuscaloosa. The way, we talked about those critical factors. Turnovers, obviously a big one. Special teams, a big one. Field position, those were really the 3 points we hit on the most in the preview, and that definitely played out exactly like we thought. Now, in the first 20 minutes, it went all Oklahoma's way. Those three categories were going Oklahoma's way, kind of like they did in Tuscaloosa, and it ended up being a 17-0 Oklahoma lead. Like I said, midway through the second quarter, and boy, it completely flipped the remaining 40 minutes or so of that game, 35 minutes of that game. All of those critical factors flipped into Alabama's corner, and Alabama was able to force the turnover. They got the after going down 17-0, they were able to put a drive together, get in the end zone, make it 17-7, kind of have a little bit of a pulse. They were able to stop Oklahoma on the ensuing drive. Were able to get the dropped punt and took over in their own deep in Oklahoma territory for Alabama, and that didn't count as a turnover, but in the stat sheet, but it effectively served as that. That was one of those special teams plays that flipped into Alabama's favor. Able to get three off of that to make it 17-10, and then obviously right after that, before half, Oklahoma was around midfield, obviously through the pick six, and the biggest play of the game. You look at the win probability, statistic. It just slung it big time in Alabama's favor at that point, and to go from 17-0 to 17-17 in the locker room that quickly was just such a momentum shift in Alabama's favor. Like I said, getting the turnovers, and then from that point on, Alabama just had much better field position than Oklahoma did. Even the drives Alabama wasn't scoring, they were able to flip the field a little bit. Consistently had Oklahoma backed up in the second half and made life really tough on them. I was just really impressed with Alabama's resiliency in this game. I mean, it looked about as bleak as it could, and the way Alabama's offense was playing through the first 20 minutes, like 17-0 felt like 38-0, honestly. I mean, just the way things were going. And for them to flip it that quick before halftime was, to get back even like that, was just such a huge momentum shift. And we'll see if it's one of those things that can carry them the rest of as they go into this playoff further. But, yeah, it was definitely one of those games. The offense finally had some explosive plays. They had, I believe, 5 plays of 20 or more yards. Had one of those on the ground with Daniel Hill. Yep. Ty Simpson, these receivers made some plays down the field, and I thought that was a huge, huge boost because, like I said, you need some explosive plays. It's just so hard to put 12 and 15 play drives together against this OU team because, man, they were absolutely dialed in early. This crowd was amazing. But, man, I was just super, super impressed the way they were able to battle back. And like I said, the offense showing a pulse kind of looked a little bit more like the October version of it, more like the October version of Ty Simpson. And, boy, he really settled in. Once they got the protection situation settled in, I thought it looked, like I said, it wouldn't, it's not going to set any records. Like they only had 250 yards of total offense. But, boy, it looked like it operated at a completely different level once they kind of got the protection settled in a little bit. And, man, he was absolutely deadly. I think without unpressured, he was like 17 to 21, I believe. So he's absolutely deadly if you give him time, and he was definitely that down the stretch. So yeah, just really, really impressed with the way they were able to battle back in this game, and yeah, they flipped those three critical factors, and they flipped the entire game in their favor.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, this kind of was a mirror image of what happened last game. Just changed the teams. I mean, you look at the team stats. Oklahoma had 362 yards of total offense to Alabama's 260. Oklahoma ran the ball for 55 yards to Alabama's 28. They were about even on penalties. Bama had 4 for 46. Oklahoma had 5 for 50. But then you look at the turnovers. Obviously, Bama had 9. Oklahoma had the pick six, kind of similar to the Oklahoma defense in the first match. So I agree that it was about played out the exact same way. Bama being able to score 24 unanswered after being down 17-0 on the road. Huge hats off to them. Their defense created some havoc. Their special teams stepped up and made plays when they needed to. They weren't the ones missing field goals this game. It was everything ended up working in their favor after, like you said, the first 20 minutes. They were a completely different ball team. They've been there before. The moment's not too big for them. Oklahoma struggles in the postseason. They still have yet to win a game in the postseason. But you covered it all pretty well. I'll stay off of the recap as much, but I do have a problem with people going after John Mateer on the deep touchdown pass that I believe is what the next play was, the block punt. I believe is when that happened. They're claiming on the third down he had a free 7-8 yards to get the first down, but he threw the deep ball. I can't remember who the guy is. The dude was wide open, and it went right through his hands. He dropped it, and everybody's getting mad at John Mateer for not tucking it and running. If Buddy catches the ball, it's either a touchdown, and at worst, they're inside the 10. Like, I don't think that anybody should be upset with John Mateer. If you're going to be upset with anybody, be upset with the guy that dropped the pass. I thought that was a great play. If they're able to hit that, the game changes completely. But like you said, Alabama created their own momentum, which I thought was huge. And in the fourth quarter, Alabama dominated. Even though Oklahoma was able to go down and bring it within 3, Alabama drove right back down and separated it by double digits again. Played out kind of how we expected it to, except for the under. These offenses came out; they were throwing some punches. And when you give offenses several short plays or short fields, they're going to capitalize on it with points. I believe Alabama's longest drive of this game was only 9 plays because they had short fields a lot of times. It was a 9-play where they scored their first touchdown. They drove 75 yards, so they kind of got back into their rhythm and allowed, like you said, Ty Simpson to have a little time in the pocket. And when he does that, he's going to pick you apart every time. I believe he was 1 for 8 when he was pressured, but you can't bring pressure every single solitary play. So that's something that Alabama obviously has to work on moving forward. But I think although they didn't belong, all those arguments have been put to bed now. There was a lot of them coming out at halftime, and it seems to be a lot of people forget that football is played in 4 quarters and not 2. Clearly, Bama showed that this weekend. I never write Alabama off in any way, shape, or form till the clock strikes 0 in the fourth quarter. But there was just a feeling, especially after they were able to drive 75 yards to bring it within a 2-possession game. There was just a feeling that, man, you can't let them hang around. You've got to put your foot on their neck when you can. And Alabama, like I said, they created their own momentum. They were able to turn the ball game around, and 24 unanswered, man, that's tough to do anywhere, but in a playoff game on the road, I thought that was phenomenal. It looked like the best atmosphere the whole weekend in college football. Kyle Field was really good too, but man, that Oklahoma on Friday night, it looked electric. In the first half, obviously, they were feeding off the team, and then really from the drop punt on, it was all Alabama. Because Oklahoma still had a little bit of momentum. They were still up 2 possessions. And then when the drop punt happened, which I had never seen anything like that happen in my life. I've seen bobbled snaps and such, but it just looked like he timed his drop wrong to drop the punt to kick it. I don't know what happened. That was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. But I believe it was Allen that ended up blocking that punt and falling on it. I can't remember. 96, I think is who it was.
Oh, yeah, Keenan. Yeah, Tim Keenan, yeah.
Keenan, yeah. He's the one who ended up falling on the fumble, and then, like I said, after that it was all Alabama, all she wrote. But I think Alabama bodes well to make win another game or 2 here in the next few weeks. I like their matchup with Indiana, but we'll get to that here just a little bit later on in the podcast. Do want to talk about A&M and Miami. How the Alabama and Oklahoma game played out is how I expected the Miami and A&M game to play out, and vice versa. I did not expect it to be a low-scoring game like this. Both these offenses were able to put up points all season. We knew how good their defenses were, but they allowed teams to score on them, and they were able to march down the field and score. But both of these defenses played extremely well. Miami dominated the trenches. I said that it would be the best talent that my A&M had seen, and I was right about that. But I said it would be similar to some of the on-field production they've seen, and I was wrong about that. Maybe similar to Texas, if not better. That they called me out right there for sure, and they proved me wrong on that. But A&M's defense, or excuse me, Miami's defense was able to force Texas A&M to become one-dimensional. A&M really couldn't run the ball that well, and Miami didn't run it extremely well either till really late in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, Miami turned into a different ball team. But all game, Miami was forcing Marcel Reed to beat them with his arm, and he couldn't do it. Ended up throwing 2 interceptions, had a fumble, which Miami also lost a fumble. But this game 100% came down to Miami's defense. They were phenomenal. Had made turnovers when they needed to. Was forcing them into third and longs, which so was A&M. They were forcing Miami into some third and longs. I thought the both of these defenses played about as perfect as you can outside of 1 or 2 big plays. This was I know people say it was boring because it was low scoring. I thought it was a very entertaining game because the defenses were just that dominant. It's not like the offenses were inept. The defenses were just that good at stopping him and creating long fields and long downs for each offense. So I was very impressed with this game. Extremely impressed with Miami. I think they came out and made a statement saying that it wasn't a mistake that they got put in, that they belong to. Going into Kyle Field is not an easy environment to play in, and they had control of the game, it seemed like, the whole time. Even when A&M was driving and such, Miami felt like they had control of the game the whole time. It never got out of their hands. Nothing crazy really ever happened from Miami, and then they forced the turnovers when they needed to. So hats off to Miami. I think that they're going to give Ohio State a lot of trouble here in the next few weeks, or coming up next Wednesday.
Yeah, I will say this. I would have probably taken the under had I known that the Miami Hurricanes were going to bring hurricane force winds with them. Because, I
Yeah,
mean, this
true.
game looked like it was played inside a wind tunnel, dude. I mean, the kickers were missing them left and right. I mean, the quarterback struggle, in Marcel Reed in particular, it felt like, especially early, almost every throw was like wobbly, off the
Yep.
mark. They were really struggling with it, and like you said, and you could just tell from the reporters and stuff, like the wind, man, it was whipping, like the way it was coming through that stadium. So yeah, if I would have known that, I might would have took the under, but it was crazy. Like I said, the kickers had a really tough
Yep.
day. Quarterback struggled with it a lot too. Like you said, Miami was able to make A&M one dimensional. Kind of same thing on the other side as well, but not I guess not quite as much. But Marcel's Reed, he had a couple runs with his legs early, but his legs, we said that needed to be a big factor in this game. I think he only had 26 yards on the ground, so just wasn't much able to happen with his legs. This Miami defense, and you look at their team like what they were a year ago with Cam Ward, and this offense was dropping 40 a game, it felt like, but they were giving up 40 a game. I mean, their
Yep.
defense was atrocious. The fact they were able to flip this in a year, and it wasn't even as much a personnel issue, man. They really brought in a new defensive staff, man. They've really turned things around. Like I said, had the talent in place, but was able to make some adjustments and add some talent in the secondary, and that's come on huge for them because we know how good that defensive front is. And like I said, they made A&M one dimensional. Like I said, both teams got to the red zone quite a few times, wasn't able to capitalize. Like I said, some missed field goals in there. But yeah, I'm like you. I came away really, really impressed with Miami. This A&M team, you highlight with Marcel Reed threw 2 picks, 4 of his last 6 games through multiple interceptions, so it's become a problem down the stretch. They had such a great season, and I know leaves a little sour taste in their mouth to lose the final 2 games of their season. And I think, obviously, I'm super high on their future, like going forward under Mike Elko, only year 2. Their future is super bright, but I know they're definitely leaving a little bit disappointed, and And I want to take a little bit of accountability too, because looking at them mid-season, I thought they were like really a national title contender, and I think I was a little fooled, and I think I overinflated them a little bit, like thinking they could reach that ceiling, and ultimately they weren't quite to that level. Still a really good team and a great season, but I definitely know a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth the way they ended things. Losing to Texas and then losing a home playoff game; those are ones you expect to get. So, but all in all, really great season for them, and a very bright future ahead for them, no doubt. I'm not. My outlook on them is unchanged from this game, but
Absolutely.
like I said, got to give Miami a lot of credit for coming in here, and who would have thought? I mean, to hold A&M to 3 at home, and if you were Miami 12 months ago and said, "Hey, next year y'all are going to go on the road in the first round," and only score 10 points and going to come out with a win, I'm not sure not many people would have believed that. So yeah, it's going to be a fascinating matchup with them against Ohio State.
Yeah, 100%. I want to give Miami their flowers here as well. I meant to say this earlier. They had 7 sacks. They were able to get to Marcel Reed all day compared to A&M's 2 sacks. So they outperformed them in the trenches on both sides, but definitely on the defensive side. And touching on what you said with the 11 wins, we were kind of maybe overinflated them a little bit. There's a lot of people I'm hearing on social media and some guys on the radio talking about this is the weakest 11 win season ever. You don't have anything to show for it. How these fans are super upset and such. Last year, they had a chance midseason to be in the playoffs, and they kind of dwindled out. Fans still were excited with their 9 wins or whatever. And then you go in the second year of your coach, you get 11 wins, and you go to a playoff spot, and you're talking about it's a loss for a season. It drives me nuts. There's one team in the college football that can win a championship every year. There's only one. No, not every team is going to win the championship every year. It's impossible. Making it to a college football playoff that is some serious business. Like, it's not easy to do. It's something that should be celebrated. Throughout the whole entire season, anybody talks about is, are they going to make it to the playoffs? Oh, we're going to make it to the playoffs. Are we going to get in the playoffs? That's what everybody talks about. Since the first dropping of the first college football playoff rankings comes out, that's all anybody talks about is just getting to the playoffs. Then your team gets to the playoffs. Yeah, they don't perform what they should, and then you're talking about it's a loss of a season and it's a horrible season. It drives me nuts. These guys had a fantastic season. It didn't end the way they wanted to, but I don't care who you are. 10-plus wins any year is a fantastic season. Fans ought to be loving it and relishing in the great season and the great time of their program, because there are several other programs around the country who are not competing at that level all the time, and when they do take it. They don't take it for granted. They relish in it, and these people taking it for granted, and in 4 and 5 years when they're 8 or 9 wins, they're going to be wishing they had an 11-win season, and then they're sitting here not enjoying it the way they should. So let me say this: if you're a fan of A&M, yeah, it didn't end the way you wanted to, but you still had a magical run, one of the best seasons that A&M's ever had. So enjoy it, because it doesn't come every year. And then down the road, when you ain't competing in the college football playoff, you're going to wish, well, I just wish we could have gotten there, because it makes the whole season that much better. So I'll get off my soapbox about that, and we can move on. To the other 2 games. We're not going to take as much time on these because everybody witnessed the splatterings that happened to both the group of 5 teams. Ole Miss takes on Tulane, and it was pretty much a rerun from the first game. Only beat them by 31 this time, but they still allowed 10 points. One of them was a late score. Ole Miss, you could see from the first 2 drives, they literally drove down the field at ease. Like this is going to happen all game. Tulane's offense really early in the game made a push through that interception on their first, maybe second drive, and it was all she wrote after that. Ole Miss was too much for Tulane. I'll say it till my eyes roll in the back of my head and I'm laying in a coffin. Group of 5 teams don't deserve to be in the college football playoffs. The only way they deserve to be in there is if they're truly ranked in the top 10 or top 12 or whatever you want to do. The at-large needs to get gone, because this was a snooze fest. I'm locked into every single snap of the games. In this game, I got up and started doing a little bit of stuff around the house because, there was nothing to watch, man. It was completely over in the middle of the second quarter. There was nothing that Tulane could do. Ole Miss could basically do no wrong on offense. So I want to get your thoughts on this before we move to Oregon and James Madison, and some of the thoughts will still be the same there.
Yeah, I mean, I saw from Ole Miss kind of what I was wanting to see or kind of looking forward to seeing. You had to imagine how much anticipation they had to get on the field and put all the media stuff behind them and the Lane Kiffin situation behind them. And you know these guys have been itching for the last 2 or 3 weeks to get out there and kind of put that to bed and try to lock in on winning a national title. And like you said, they came out early, drove right down the field, looked sharp, looked crisp, and that's really kind of what I wanted to see and really what I expected to see. To be honest with you, I got the kind of performance, the
Mm-hmm.
effort and intensity that I thought I would from Ole Miss. And yeah, I mean they came out and handled business. I mean they were the much better team. They proved that in the regular season meeting. They proved that here again. So yeah, I mean hats off to them. Like I said, they did. They came out with the right mindset and like I said to kind of put the past to bed and looking ahead to another rematch with Georgia. And I'm very curious to see because I think both these teams have improved a lot since the first meeting, and like I said, we're going to get in that in a little bit. But yeah, I saw exactly what I wanted to from Ole Miss here.
100%. And then Oregon and James Madison. This game was really similar. Early on, it was clear that Oregon was going to run away with this one, and they did. They were up 34, had a chance to go up 42, throw a pick on JMU side of the field. JMU returns it long, and then after that, JMU gave them a fight. JMU outscored them, I think, 24-7 or something along those lines in the second half. But it was still too little, too late. There was no denying that Oregon dominated this game. That Oregon was going to win this game. It was not entertaining football like till late in the game, and it still wasn't entertaining because Oregon had such a grip on the game. Uh, I was very frustrated. Obviously, we know I took Oregon minus 21, and it was there all the way till the end. I got to give hats off to James Madison's running back, number 3. I really liked him. I thought he played extremely well. I thought he ran the ball extremely well. Wayne King, 17 for 110. I loved the way that guy ran. I fell in love with that guy Saturday night. I was texting you and Alexander. I was like, man, there's something about this JMU running back. He's got the it factor. He was about the only thing that jumped off the page to me, though, about JMU. Obviously, they didn't fight. They didn't quit. That's something that Oregon did. Oregon 100% quit in the fourth quarter. They thought, man, we got this game won. We're just going to cruise into the next round. And yes, they had it won and they were cruising into the next round. But that's a horrible, horrible habit to create there and a mindset to create, especially when you're making a run in the college football playoffs. You're going to face nothing but harder competition now. And instead of keeping their foot on the gas and showing how much more dominant they were than JMU, they let them off the mat in the fourth quarter. I thought that it was embarrassing for Dan Lanning. I thought that it was embarrassing for Oregon. They should be ashamed that they ended the game like that. Yes, they still won by 17, whatever. I get it. But they should be ashamed with how that fourth quarter played out and how JMU embarrassed them in the fourth quarter. I know it didn't play out that whole way the whole game, and I know Oregon manhandled them the whole entire time and had a complete control of this game from the starting kickoff. But to allow the game to end that way and you get embarrassed and get outperformed in the fourth quarter, just Dan Lanning going to get that righted. Uh, me and Cam were kind of hot on the phone Saturday night after it, talking about I hope Texas Tech blows their doors off next round. If they do, I'm cool with it. I just don't see it happening. I see Dan Lanning coaching off of this for sure and not allowing that to happen ever again because they're probably not going to be in those games the rest of the season if they do go on to compete in the national championship. They're not going to be in any more of these types of games, I don't believe. But to lose your focus the way they did in the fourth quarter is something that I was more frustrated about that, seeing how they performed in the fourth quarter than I was losing the money. Very frustrated about that. I was just taken
Yeah.
aback by this Dan Lanning team and how they lost focus and just gave up really in the fourth quarter. That shocked me because I've never seen that from a Dan Lanning led team.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they got obviously, they were head and shoulders better, and they were for most of this game. But like you said, down the stretch, they got outscored 21-3 in the final, a little bit over a quarter, quarter plus there. Um, so, and it was the way they gave up drives. I mean, they gave up a 9-play, 99-yard drive, and then turned around and gave up an 89-yard drive. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, they're letting them drive the length of the field pretty quickly here. And like you said, it was an all-time bad beat for us. So yeah, there's definitely some emotions going there on the phone because I loved Oregon this game big. I actually took it pretty the day of the game on Saturday. I saw it drop to 20 and a half. So I'm like, yeah, under 3 touchdowns. I love that. I thought they would cover, even over 21 and a half and all that. I thought they would. And they were on track to, man, the entire game. And I know, like, they put some young guys in. And like you said, they were cruising to the next round. But, man, like, you can't completely take your foot off the gas there. And like I said, blew the cover, which was brutal because I, put a nice little chunk of change on that. So that was a tough bad beat at the end there. But yeah, I mean they did what they needed to. I mean their offense was clicking for sure. The turnover, I feel like if that pick doesn't happen,
Yeah,
it might be a totally different ending to the game. But that gave JMU a lot of momentum, and like you said, you got to give them a lot of credit. Like they're going to keep fighting, and they certainly did that and made some things happen. And that they have a lot of pride, so they fought back and made it look a lot more respectable. But I'm like you, I don't really want to see the group of fives. Like if you're not in the top 12, legitimately, like I don't want to see the 20th and 24th ranked
yeah,
teams
no business.
be in this playoff. I mean, it's brutal. I didn't watch much of this one honestly because I really didn't want to give it. I want the ratings to be really bad compared to the other ones because if you want to get it changed, you got to talk with the dollar bill, and I want the ratings to be low because it's just like you said, it's just not what the college football playoff should be. Like I said, I think in a perfect world, have their own playoff, kind of like the FCS does, and I mean. Like I said, I want to be competitive, and like I said, they're not going to compete with the high level Power Fours, like playoff caliber Power Four teams. They're just not on that level. So it's like I don't think they should be competing for a national title. Like I said, I think they should. I think they should compete for their own, but competing with the Power Four teams trying to win it all, like they're
It'll
never going
never
to make
happen.
any noise. Yeah,
It'll never happen.
there's not. They don't have the resources. They don't have the horses on the field. And now, I mean, if they legitimately get in the top 12, and that's one thing. You had like Cincinnati a couple years ago that made the 14 playoff. Like obviously, yeah, they should be in the 12-team playoff. Like they
And
earned it.
Boise last year, but even still, both of those teams weren't even close. They
Yeah,
got boat raced. The
yeah.
game was a little closer than the scoreboard dictated for Boise State, but they never had control of that game last year.
No, so yeah, I think in a perfect world that would happen. We'll obviously see. I'm not confident that will, but yeah, like I said, it is a shame, and you know, I'm the way Notre Dame's fans have acted. I'm kind of glad they didn't, but man, it would have been fun to see them go down to Oxford though, and like I said, maybe if you'd have just took the committee's rankings, had Ole Miss going, I mean Notre Dame going to Oxford to play Ole Miss and BYU going to Oregon, man, that would have been so much better than what we
100%.
got. So, but that's in the past now. I tell you what, we're loaded for this quarterfinals. I did want to make one more point though on the Texas A&M situation. I agree with you. I don't think fans should be bummed out, like, talking like they didn't have, like they had a fantastic season. Like I said, I know it's a little sour taste in your mouth. You didn't finish the way you wanted, but one thing too that I don't think many people are taking into consideration is both their coordinators are going out the door. Like Oregon's dealing with this as well too. I mean, Will Stein's going to Kentucky, Tosh LaPoy's going to Cal. A&M. You've got Colin Klein going to Kansas State. Jay Bateman's going to Kentucky to be DC. So it's like you've got a lot of guys going out the door, and those guys want other guys in your building, which always happens. So I think that's something to take too. It's like that kind of stuff plays a factor. Like Miami didn't have to deal with that kind of situation. Yep. Like they didn't have those type of staff changes with their coordinators and other position coaches near to the level that Texas A&M has, and that's like a little thing you got to think about. In these playoffs, you've got guys going different directions because the calendar's so out of whack. You've got guys trying to pull double duty, and you're not going to have that same level of focus if that wasn't the case. So it's like, yeah, Colin Klein, like, I'm not I'm not hating on him in any way, but it's like there's no humanly way possible he had the same focus for this game that he had for all the other games.
Yes, he's
Like
building
he's
his new
trying to build his
roster.
staff, and like I
Yeah.
said, that's no diss on him or anything. That's just the way the situation we're in right now. But it's like those kind of things don't matter at this point in the year. So, like I said, it's a lot of different factors, and I get it. A&M fans are disappointed, but like I said, a great season. And like I said, I think their future is just fine. But I did want to touch on that before we moved on to the previews.
100%. All right, moving on to the previews. First game is going to be New Year's Eve, Wednesday night. Miami's taking on Ohio State at the Cotton Bowl in Texas at AT&T Stadium. Ohio State is a 9.5-point favorite, over under at 42.5. I'm taking Miami plus 9.5. The way that I saw Ohio State struggle with Indiana's defense, I think Miami's defense is better, especially up front. I think they're going to be able to get to Julian Sayin and keep him uncomfortable. I think Ohio State finds a way to win this game because I think they're all around a better team, and I think offensively they're going to find a way to get in the end zone like A&M couldn't. But I think Miami keeps it close. I think it's definitely a one-possession ball game. I like Miami to cover 9.5. I cannot believe it's that high.
Yeah, I do too, man. I think the way this Miami defense playing in all phases up front, Ohio State was not able to run the ball against Indiana. I think they're going to have a hard time running it here too. I'm sure the game plan. I think Ohio State anticipated they would be able to run it against Indiana better than they did. So I think coming into this game, I think they'll know going in, like, hey, we're not going to be able to, maybe not be able to run the ball as well as we think we can. So I think maybe they'll trend a little bit more to the passing game, maybe be a little bit more prepared for that aspect. I'm like you, though. I love this Miami D. I think it's going to be a really low scoring game. I really do. I
You like
just,
under 42.5, or do you like
I
over that?
do. I
Okay.
like the under 42.5, to be honest. I think it's going to play out kind of similar to the Ohio State and Indiana game. I really do. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, you never know if you get a turnover or something, set your offense up. But I just don't see either offense doing a lot. I mean, I just have a ton of respect for both these defenses. I mean, both offenses are good, but I think both defenses just have an advantage here. So yeah, I like Miami to keep it within a score, and I like the under 42.5. I think it's going to be like I don't know, like a 20-14 type of game, or 20-13, 13-10 maybe, like it was in the Big Ten title game. I don't know, but I think it's real low scoring. Um, like I said, I think both defenses are going to have a lot of success here. But like I said, I like Miami to keep it close. I like Ohio State to find a way to win, though. I think I have a little bit more trust in their offense overall, from what I've seen. So I did pick Ohio State to go to the semifinals before, so I'm staying with that pick. In a close game in the Cotton Bowl, obviously Miami won't have to deal with the wind tunnel that they had in College Station, so that'll be helpful for their special teams, I'm sure. But yeah, I like my, Ohio State close, low scoring game over Miami.
All right. Oregon's taking on Texas Tech at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Oregon's a 1.5-point favorite, over under at 52.5. I'm sticking with Oregon. I've got Oregon playing in the national championship game against Georgia. I think Oregon gets it done. Again, like I said, the way that they ended their game, I think Lanning's going to use that to fuel them and be able to. He's a great motivator, probably the best motivator in college football. I'm taking Oregon to win. I'm taking them to win handily, so I think they cover this 1.5. I think it might be interesting for the first half, but I think Oregon's able to pull away. I think they have a little more depth. I think their talent's better. So give me Oregon minus 1.5. I think Texas Tech is going to continue that trend of the bye teams losing this week. I think Ohio State puts a stop to that. Like I said, I think they get a win, but I think Oregon's going to Texas Tech is going to add to the bye teams taking a loss, with Oregon coming in there and beating them by at least 2 points.
Yeah, I like Oregon too. We did our playoff previews and predictions with Alexander. I liked Oregon to get to the national championship too, actually. So I had them going past Texas Tech, and like you said, I think those will be some teaching moments from the end of that game. And like I said, playing some younger guys too. I don't know how much stock you can take into it exactly. And two, like I said, the bye team situation, like how does that affect having such a long layoff like that? I feel like the teams that played in the first round have a little bit of advantage because they're
Mm-hmm.
not quite as rusty, and they still have a good bit of time leading up. Like they still have 12 or so days, 12 or 13 days leading up to this. So, I mean, it's not like they're coming right off of this game. Like, they pretty much have a bye week in between as well. So, I just feel like that's maybe a little bit of advantage for the teams playing in the first round. And with Texas Tech, too, great team, really good defense. Didn't play anybody in the non conference, so all you have to judge them off is just their Big 12 schedule. And I don't know how much stock to take into that. Like I know they beat BYU twice very handily, and BYU's a very solid team, but I just think Oregon's been through a few more wars than Texas Tech has. I think they can limit Texas Tech on the ground, and I think they can put them in maybe some third and longs and be able to get after the quarterback a little bit. So I just think Oregon has so many playmakers on the offensive side. So yeah, I like Oregon to win and cover here. I just think from a schedule advantage too. I think they've got that edge here, and so I'm gonna take another bye team to lose. That'll be the fifth one in 2 years. That was a little bit of a trend last year in the inaugural 12 team playoff. So yeah, I like Oregon to get the job done here and move on to the semis.
All right, Bama's taking on Indiana. Bama is a touchdown underdog. Indiana's a 7-point favorite. Over under 48.5 in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. I can't believe the spread is this big. I really can't. I think Alabama covers this. I think it is a super close game. I'm going to be honest. I would take the over 48.5 because I think these offenses are going to find a way to score. I don't think that Indiana is going to be able to pressure Ty Simpson the way that they've been pressured recently in conference. And then I think that Indiana's offense is legit. I don't think that they're some fairy tale that's had a Cinderella type season. I think they're legit, and I think they're able to move the ball down the field. But I don't think they're going to be able to do it at ease like they did in their schedule this year. I think it'll be a closer game, kind of like the Oregon game was, or the Iowa game, or the Ohio State game in the Big Ten championship. I know that they ended up beating Oregon by 10, but I think Bama's able to keep this closer. I really don't know who I feel is going to win this game. I have more confidence in Alabama because I feel like they've been tested way more than Indiana has. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that Indiana can throw at Alabama that they haven't seen. I, the roster Bama play, or excuse me, the schedule Bama play, the sixth ranked toughest schedule this year, so they are battle tested for sure. I think as a whole, Indiana's probably the better team, but I think Alabama's been tested more, and that's why I'm taking Alabama over Indiana. They've been in this spot plenty of times. Like I said earlier, I kind of feel the same as I did about the Oklahoma game, and that it's not going to be too much for them. Again, I'm not sure who comes away winning this game, but I know that it's probably not going to be by a touchdown. I'm taking Alabama +7, keeping it close. Have no feel on who's going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it is maybe a little bit of advantage for that team playing in the first round. I think from Alabama's perspective, I think they're going to be. It sounds to me from Kalen DeBoer's press conference and just from coming out of the Oklahoma game, seems like they're going to be as healthy as they've been in a while. Now they had some guys they were able to get ready for the Oklahoma game, like a Josh Cuevas and Parker Brailsford, guys like that were able to play but really weren't back to 100%. I think a lot of those guys will be back closer to 100% for this game. Like I said, I think probably the healthiest they've been since earlier in the season, so I think that'll bode well for them. And again, I want to know too how much that comeback and the way they were able to do it
Mm-hmm.
is that one of those moments that you're going to look back on and like, man, that was the spark. That's what really clicked them to kind of get their offense back to more like midseason form,
Mm-hmm.
able to generate some turnovers on the defensive side. So, is it one of those situations where you look back if they are able to get to say the national championship game and you go, man, like that turnaround in Norman, that's what sparked this entire run. So we'll see if that's the case. Um, like you said, Alabama's just been through so many wars this year throughout their schedule. There's just not much they haven't seen. Now I know Indiana is one of the best defenses in the country, but Alabama's faced so many of those down the stretch. So I don't think it'll be anything they haven't seen, and so I think that will be an advantage for Alabama. I do think though Indiana's not going to have those same mistakes that Oklahoma had. Like the pick six that John Mateer threw, getting confused on the coverage and throwing it to Xavier Brown, which, like I said, got to give Alabama credit for forcing that and creating that confusion. But I'm not sure that Fernando Mendoza is going to give you some of those. I loved how Alabama adjusted out of their zone coverage early in the game, which John Mateer, they were able to pick that apart. I think they're going to go more like you saw in the second half, play some more man-to-man, try to get pressure on Mendoza. They were able to get 5 sacks on Mateer in the latter part of this game. So I think they're going to do something similar. But Indiana's they just don't beat themselves, though. So, like, you're going to have to go beat them. I just don't think they're going to hand you anything. But I'm like you. I'm gonna lean Alabama. I didn't think the chalk was gonna hold throughout this playoff. I think Alabama finds a way in Pasadena. I had them get to the semifinals, and I think what I saw in Norman in the second half gives me a little bit more confidence in that. But regardless, I do like Alabama plus the 6.5. I think that might be a little too strong.
And then Ole Miss taking on Georgia at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Georgia's a 6.5 point favorite. I'm taking Georgia to win and to cover. Over under's 55.5. I'm probably taking the under there. But I'm taking Georgia to win and cover, and my reason is how I've said the last few weeks about Georgia and rematches. They're undefeated in rematches. You go back to 2011 against LSU when he was D coordinator at Bama. LSU scored 9 points in the first match, 0 points in the second match. Didn't cross the 50 in the second match. You go to Auburn in 2017. Auburn scored 40 in the first match, scored 7 in the rematch. Bama in 2021. Bama scored 40-something in the first game, 20-something in the rematch. 2024 plays Texas twice. Texas scores 15 in the first game and 18 in the second game, but it was not even close in the second game at all. Texas is the only team to score more in the second game than the first game. And then Bama this year, Bama scores 24 in the first game, 7 in the rematch. Ole Miss scored 35 in the first game. I see them scoring probably somewhere in the 21 to 28 range. I'm taking probably Georgia winning 34-21, 35-21, somewhere like that. Georgia ran the ball at will against them last time, ran for over 200 yards. Ole Miss didn't have a way to stop it. I don't find that many teams, if they can't stop the run against a certain team, that they're going to find a way to magically stop it. I think Georgia's just better in the trenches than Ole Miss is. Ole Miss didn't run the ball extremely well. I don't think that they're going to be able to find a way to run the ball. I know Keywan Lacey's a phenomenal back, one of the best backs in the conference. I just don't know that they're going to be able to find a way against this Georgia defense to run the ball the way they need to really open up their offense. He did have 200-plus passing yards when he threw for 263. He only did have one touchdown, though. So I like Georgia to keep the trend going here and not losing a rematch under Kirby Smart. I like the trend to stay where the offense doesn't score more in the second match. I think it's going to be a 35-21 type ball game. I think Georgia finds a way to go get points. I mean, Gunnar Stockton threw 4 touchdowns in the first game. And again, they ran the ball extremely well. I think that stays the same for Georgia. I don't think there's going to be anything Pete Golden can throw at Kirby Smart that he's not going to be ready for. I think the Dogs roll in this one, and I think they move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, I'm like you. I think that trend's going to continue as well. I think the thing to watch, though, is just, if anything, does this long layoff kind of throw Georgia's momentum off a little bit? I mean, that'd be something to watch, I guess you could say, because, I mean, coming in, out of the SEC championship game, I mean, they, to both of us, look like the title favorite.
Oh, yeah.
They were playing as well as anybody, particularly the second half of the season, which is kind of a trend for Kirby Smart and these Georgia teams, the way they're able to just keep coaching guys and just improve incrementally as the season goes along, and they always seem to be playing their best football towards the end of the year. That was certainly the case this year. Does that layoff throw them off a little bit? I'm not certain that it will. Honestly, I don't think it will. But that'll be something, something to keep an eye on early in this game. If maybe they come out a little more rusty. But like you said, I think the trend of him making adjustments in those rematches, I think that's going to hold true in this one as well. I don't see. I mean, I think Ole Miss will have offensive success, but I don't think it'll be to the level that we saw in Athens in the first game. And who knows? I don't know if Georgia will have quite to that same level either. I don't think it'll be quite as high scoring this time. I think both teams are improved from that matchup, but just what I've seen from Georgia, man, it's hard to pick against them until you see otherwise. The way they play down the stretch, but I think it's going to be a very, very interesting rematch. Very excited to see it. What adjustments are made from game one to game two. But I'm like you. I like Georgia to win here, get to the semifinals. They're just playing too well. They have too much experience in these spots for me to pick against them at this point, and that they would still be my favorite as of right now. But I'm very, very looking forward to seeing them get on the field in the quarterfinals.
Yes, and before we get out of here, there's something I want to say. We said this last year, and I'll say it again. Teams that get the bye, the top four teams, they should be allowed to host their first game. They should be allowed to host a quarterfinal game. It is atrocious that they're not getting rewarded for being the best. So the teams that hosted this past weekend, Oregon, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and A&M, it was estimated that each of those towns, not the school, the towns, made $50 to $70 million because they were hosting it with hotels, restaurants, and so on. All the things that you're getting, the attraction, the tourist attraction stuff, stores, like $50 to $70 million is what Oxford made, is what Eugene, Oregon made, is the estimated guess. So you're punishing these towns that have these teams that are the best. You're punishing Indiana, you're punishing Texas Tech and Georgia, and the other one's slipping me, and
Ohio State.
Ohio State. You're punishing these guys for being the best in college football by not allowing the town that supported them the whole entire year, that's made money from them the whole entire year, to not go and then make that extra money. And then also the school making money off of ticket sales and such because they're the best. I think eventually it will get that way. It's just mind-blowing. And I get it because it's the contracts with the bowl games, the Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, and Rose Bowl that I just named that these next games are being played at. I understand it. And I could be mistaken on this, but I think that contract runs through 2028, so they're bound to it, and I understand how all that works. I just think it's criminal that these teams that are the top four teams are not allowed to host the first round of the playoff games at their own place for being the best in college football, when the second tier of the best four, the 6 through 8, essentially are getting rewarded for having a worse season, essentially. I think that's a little crazy, and that needs to be fixed for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think all along, I think we both wanted to see the first two rounds be on campus, like you said, because, as a top four seed, you do get rewarded for being that by not having to play the first round. But like you said, if you're not playing in the first round, then you also don't get the benefit of hosting a home playoff game, which is such a big deal. Like, that's just not something you get to do very often. So, like you said, you got to be in that 5 through 8 spot to be able to do that. So it's like you are too good to play in the first round, but you don't get the benefit of being able to host a first round, host a playoff game like 5 through 8 was. So, yeah, I would love to see that the first two rounds be on campus and get the benefit of that. Would be super cool, and that's what makes college football special. I mean, like the neutral site environments, like they're good. You got half of one, half of the other, pretty much, or something like that. But man, the environments we saw, at all these places, particularly Norman and at Kyle Field, like, man, There's nothing like it. So that's what makes college football great, and I would love to see more of that. Like you said, I mean, dude, how jacked do you think Bloomington would be with
Dude.
Alabama coming to Indy? I mean, that place would be absolutely going
And it would be
crazy.
in favor of
Um,
Indiana. Like that would help Indiana out. Like you
yeah,
deserve to have a little home field advantage for being the best. That is a huge swing in momentum, huge game changer of being at home and having the home crowd in your corner. Like that's a benefit you should get for being one of the best.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, Miami going to the shoe to play Ohio State. Ole Miss will be going back to Athens to play Georgia. And then like same thing. Like imagine it for these two places in particular because they haven't been in this situation very often. But just imagine the environment in Lubbock with Oregon coming to play
Yeah.
Texas Tech, and then Bloomington with Indiana hosting Alabama. Like Georgia's been there, done that. They've been to these before. Like same thing with Ohio State, but like those two places alone would be just crazy to see because they just haven't been in those spots.
And then you could
So
host
it
game
would be
day from one of
something
those
to see.
environments, man. That would be one of the most electric game days, whichever four that you choose from,
Yeah,
because it's a different level of energy that's going into that game. Like that college town is going to be different than any other of the 12 games or the other 7 or 8 games they've seen at home that year. It would be great for college football as a whole if it is eventually put into place, and I think that it will be sooner than later, especially if they expand. Then it will allow them
yeah,
to also
I
do
think
that and to stay in the contracts that they have with the bowl games.
that's probably what'll happen if I had to say. I think once they go, because it's probably going to 16 at least. I think they may do that once it goes to 16, and they may just do away with buys. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
do one versus 16, two versus 15, or what have you. I think at that point they may just do like, hey, everybody will play, all four, through 4 rounds or whatever. So I think that might be a situation to where they do okay since everybody's playing for starting in the first round now we'll do 2 rounds on home campuses. So I think that's probably the situation where that will more come into play in the future. So, but yeah, that's definitely a change I would love to see as well. But all in all, though, we're going to have some great quarterfinal matchups. Going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, had 2 great first round matchups, which we anticipated. The other 2 were not as fun, which we anticipated that too. But I think all 4 of these are shaping up to be really good, really competitive, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Just be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. You can follow us on Twitter at Saturdays_SEC. Follow us on TikTok as well, uploading clips to there a lot. And really just appreciate all your guys' support tuning in all year. Hard to believe we're coming to a close of the calendar year 2025. Obviously, still got some more football to go here early in 2026, and it comes and goes really fast. But appreciate all the support. Hopefully, everyone has a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and we'll catch you back here after the quarterfinals.
Yes. Merry Christmas, guys. Thank you.